Hi, everybody. Welcome to In Bloom. So, in today's video, I'm just going to be riffing a little bit about the physical symptoms within the Kundalini process. So, I asked a question on the community tab, and I'm really grateful for y'all's responses. I enjoy to know, for one, I enjoy to connect with you all to see what it is that you're wishing to experience from the channel. And to hear a little bit and to get to know you all also. Sometimes they're your profile pictures or the energies behind your expression. I experience a bit of you, and that makes me really happy to connect with. So in the community tab, I asked what you all would enjoy to hear more about. And someone, I'll keep your names private, but someone said the physical symptoms such as pain and pressure and tension, especially in the chakras and in the head. And so, yeah, I thought this was really alive with me. The topic of pain, pressure, tension. So some people would describe this as there in the Kundalini process, there are these energy movements in the body. There can be these kind of symptoms such as contraction or heat that you can feel or experience in certain places or energy centers. And yeah, so one of the things that comes up for me is just the exploration and the understanding of symptoms as psychic emotional phenomenon, just being aware that the symptoms that occur within the Kundalini process, these the heat, the contractions, these are essentially unconscious material being purified, coming up to be processed. And whenever I really understood this and created this kind of relationship with the symptoms, it created a doorway for me to be able to connect with my process a lot more intimately, and also to understand the symptoms as something that are I could create a relationship with him that was more curious and open and listening and attuning to. And there are a variety of ways that people can work through their symptoms in the Kundalini process. And I'll share a little bit about what has worked best for me, because everybody is different. But I enjoy the idea of creating a reflective space for other people to be able to explore their process and experiment within their process. So one of the things that works best for me is higher consciousness healing. And I mention it all the time, but it's because it works so well for me. And of course, this method is in my favorite way that it's presented is in Healing Kundalini Symptoms by Tara So this is a beautiful book. If anyone is ever a client with me, I'll probably recommend it to them. I don't think there's a client that I've had that I haven't talked about it. So yeah, the higher consciousness healing is available in that book. And for me, it's a wonderful way to, the way that I would describe it is to connect to the deepest love and wisdom within me in order to fully receive all of the symptoms that occur. For one, it helps to dissolve these kind of ice block rigid processes into maybe more watery experiences, and then it can become steam, so it can be quite blissful. And that's something that I have experienced with higher consciousness healing, so I really enjoy that. But also it kind of works with the psychology, the psychological element too. And I really appreciate that aspect about it. So not only are you tuning into this deep divine space within and connecting to whatever your higher consciousness might be, you're also tuning into a loving relationship with your human. And that's really important, in my opinion, throughout the Kundalini process, is to be able to create a relationship with the human in a way that is really nourishing and fulfilling. And so that's one way that has been helpful for me to work through these Kundalini symptoms. And another way has been through process work or process-oriented psychology. And it's a beautiful, wonderful way to, what I've noticed is to really tune into the integration that wants to be beckoned in recurring symptoms, or what I would like to describe as seasonal symptoms. So if you've been going through the Kundalini process for quite some time, for me, it's been 6 years now, I think 6, since 2018. Then you might notice, some people might notice that there are symptoms that are a little bit harder to, or are a bit more recurring during certain periods in life, or they seem like they only happen in certain circumstances. And it's almost like the symptom itself has this wisdom to it. Yeah. It's like the symptom itself has this kind of wisdom to it that's saying, hey, I really need something here, or hey, I have something really beautiful to share with you about your full embodiment and what you could open to. And process work has helped me to do that. And I'll explain a little bit how, and not just process work, but also listening to the wisdom of the symptom. And so I'll kind of riff a little bit about that. And whenever there's a recurring symptom, it can be really, or a symptom that is a bit less likely to dissolve in whatever practices you're doing. For me, I enjoy body scan practices where I'm really immersing the symptoms in light and love and deep relaxation. And I'm allowing the symptoms to, or these kind of blockages and dense energies to just dissolve in light. And I can even feel it as I talk about it and speak to it, that it's just natural for this to occur. But if there are any symptoms that are a bit more like, no, no, then I might ask a blockage to express itself. And I've learned this from all of the different Kundalini therapists that I've worked with. I might ask the blockage to express itself. And I'll just bring the awareness to that blockage, bring the awareness to that, whatever it is. And ask it, what do you need? Or how do you feel? How are you feeling? First. And just with curiosity. So it can be really beneficial to have some spaciousness in order to really receive whatever it's going to say. And what I notice is that I've gotten really good at being able to tune into what the blockage actually is expressing, and kind of the essence of what that blockage needs, and like a general framework or essence or fragrance of that blockage. And sometimes it can be really helpful to have a general idea of the chakra system, but you don't need to know all these different complex systems in order to have a really beautiful, intuitive, and loving relationship with the symptoms that are recurring, or with the symptoms that come up. And just to give an example, so there's a blockage, or like a kind of a more of a dense feeling for me that I started experiencing in the lower back recently, over like the last 3 months. And so I started listening to it, and I started bringing it to these different facilitations that I was participating in. And I would, have notepads. I love writing things down. So I would have my notepad down with me, and whenever I was doing higher consciousness healing, and I would ask it, what do you need? And I would bring it to these different facilitations, process work. And during one particular process work facilitation, I really tuned in to like the challenge of that kind of density. And what came alive, process work is really creative. So the many things are welcome, and it's fully immersive, and you can allow yourself to your whole kind of experience, your body, you can express through sound, whatever it is that you're tuning into and connecting with. And so for me, I really went deeply into it, and I started singing. I started singing, I can be myself. I can be myself. And I was just like singing, and it was so open to, and big, and like loud and welcoming fully welcoming myself, fully welcoming life, fully welcoming. And you can probably get it like that quality, like, wow, yeah, it's so welcoming and wonderful and fully receptive and open and alive. And just that willingness to be fully in my body. And so I was singing, and I was singing how I loved myself and that I could be myself. And next thing you know, I brought it over to my piano and I just allowed that to express. And it was so beautiful and creative and abundant. And that experience so successful to me because it was helping me to tune into the wisdom of that kind of dense, rigid blockage. The reason that I talk about this is because some of the content can just be processed, and it's just going to come up, and it's just going to pass through the conscious mind, and it's going to go woof, and it'll be fine. But sometimes whenever there's like a recurring symptom, it can be really beneficial to work through that in a psychological way, on a psychological level. And in my own symptom, just to be completely transparent for, your all's sake, and to really create this sense of mutuality that I'm aware that people really enjoy on this channel, is that that blockage that kept recurring had to do with this full embodiment, the ability to be big, the ability to be open, the ability to fully experience life, and this kind of rigidity and resistance against that. And so the wisdom that I gained through that was, I'm taking painting classes. I've been playing piano a lot more. I'm allowing myself to express myself on this channel more. And I'm sitting in that, I'm honoring that symptom because it's sharing with me something that is really valuable and important. So I felt like it was really important to share that with some people. Because what I understand is that some recurring symptoms can be annoying. We just want the symptom to go away. But the ones that are really pressing and that are continual, it just means that we have a little bit more work to do with whatever that is. And so the more that we can work with that and honor it and listen to it, the better it'll be. Something else is that to be able to honor kind of a non-dual expression of energy can be really fruitful in the Kundalini process. So, just seeing energy as neutral and really being able to create a harmonious, loving relationship with what could feel uncomfortable or overwhelming at times, these kind of contractions. I hope that makes sense. And what I've noticed in my experience, the more that I can tune into the symptom with a quality of listening, curiosity, so it's that kind of spacious, just from awareness, the easier it is. And the easier it is to tune into that. And everybody's going to be a little different, their practices, what helps their symptoms, how they engage with them. And everybody's going to figure out what works best for them. So it can be really fruitful to explore and to experiment. Sometimes with higher consciousness healing, to me, I didn't really start seeing the benefits of it until about maybe after 3 weeks. And anytime I stop doing it and I pick it back up, the benefits, it's like a little snowball. It gets better and better and better. And yeah, so what I mean to say is just having this creative and diligent, kind of experimental relationship where you're hand holding yourself, especially if your symptoms are really harsh. You're finding support systems in the ways that are most fruitful for you when dealing with Kundalini in general. And being supportive for yourself also. And ultimately, that will be your number one support. Having practical support systems, but also having you as your number one supporter. So the person who mentioned the physical symptoms, they also talked about head symptoms. And I've heard a lot about this. Apparently this gets mentioned quite frequently. I'm not sure if it's a common symptom, but I've seen it around. And I've also had head symptoms. And what I have noticed in my own experience with head symptoms is that it can manifest in a variety of ways for different people. But what I understand it as for me is the inner critic, the very, very harsh inner critic with my head symptoms. And for other people, and it's the head is kind of like how we see and experience like our world view, how it's almost like if you could just put sunglasses on and it was just like how you saw the world. And so what I've heard is that for some people, head symptoms can be having a kind of I've heard of a few things. One of them for me is this really harsh inner critic. So sometimes just like absolute self-hatred can come from the head, and a lot of self-judgment. But I've also heard for others that there is this tendency to think of oneself as quite important. And or having a foggy view of reality, meaning like you're not having a clear view of circumstances. Maybe it could be like a relationship, for example, like an unhealthy relationship that is really toxic and abusive. Somebody might have head symptoms in this experience because they're rationalizing being with this person whenever it's not okay. So for everybody, like I said, it's going to be different. And it can be harder to tune into exactly what head symptoms are suggesting. And so you might inquire what I've felt to be, useful is you might inquire, what chakra is this symptom connected to? And then listen. And for me, it tends to be the hara, or the root chakra. So the navel chakra, or the root. And then I'll inquire and work with that area. But I've gotten pretty good at knowing what my symptoms are over the last 6 years, connecting with them, and being able to listen to them and what they are. And I feel like that's really beneficial if you can do that without having to look at it necessarily. It's good to research. It's good to, gather information. And it's really beneficial also if you can inquire and experience that symptom and experience what it's expressing. So, yeah. And lastly, I think that it's really valuable to express that, like I said, because I've had questions from people like, how much do I need to be just sitting with myself and sitting with all this content? And I've even had those questions for myself in the past. How much do I need to be doing this particular practice? Or how little, and what have you. And that's going to be for each person to really understand and work through with themselves. But I think that it's valuable to express in this particular video that this is about full embodiment, yeah? And so some of the content is just, like I said earlier, is just going to come up and poof, it's just going to pass through the conscious mind, and that's it. But if there's a recurring symptom, or if one that feels quite dense, or it only occurs in certain experiences and you're picking up on that, then it can be really fruitful to generously, creatively, curiously feel into it and really say, I've got you, I'm here for you. What is it? We're here together. We're here together to do this work, and listen to the wisdom that exists in that symptom, and the gems that are really within it. Yeah. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Lastly, I notice that some people that I connect with are really creative. So I'm just going to mention this. But creativity can be a really wonderful way to connect harmoniously with yourself and create a really loving relationship. This is obviously if you feel called to it. And if that's kind of like the tendency within you, then I invite and encourage anybody who's creative to listen to that and experience that in the way that feels enlivening and connecting and attuning to a very loving and generous and curious part of you. Yeah, very loving, curious, and generous part of you. feel like that's such a gift that I've been getting through piano, through music, through painting, is the gift of understanding that there's this inherent abundance, this inherent generosity, this inherent love that just has the capacity to connect with experience in such a attuning and beautiful, luscious way. And that can be quite opening and fruitful from what I've experienced. And yeah, so I think that's a good stopping point for the physical symptoms video. I might create another article having to do with physical symptoms, and just to be a little bit more articulate. And some people really appreciate the Kundalini article series. So I might do that, but yeah. So thank you all so much for the answers or responses on the community tab. I will definitely keep, this is one of the ways that I tune into what video I'm going to be creating next. So your suggestions about, what video to create, this is just me being like, okay, this is what people want. So this is what I'm happy to create. So I appreciate you all connecting, and many, many blessings and well wishes to you and your journey and your Kundalini process. All right.